Hi, we are Grigori Gharveyn. This is episode 1 of part 1 of our current project, Our Future History, How the Earth Made Peace. Part 1, Cultural Defense Mechanisms, episode 1. Today, teachers around the world guide their students to define cultural defense mechanisms as one of the leading causes of many social illnesses, such as poverty, tyranny, and injustice, that were prevalent in nearly every community when the Interfaith movement convened to help world peace emerge. The science of memetics was in its infancy in those days. Few people understood what memes or memetic agents were or how they really operated. However, many people were already exploring the frontiers of this emerging science, and a clearer picture emerged of how our evolution as a species, organically, socially, emotionally, and cognitively, was a form of symbiotic, mutually enhancing, parallel paths of evolution, each specific evolutionary path reinforcing the others. Memetics emerged in part to describe how social systems become culturally extended across multiple generations and could invade new populations foreign to their own cultural origins. As we evolved as a species, we learned to transmit our collective wisdom from one generation to the next through the art of storytelling. Because our stories were vital tools to impart wisdom to our children and peers, the forms of our stories must be carefully respected. No part or nuance should be left out or misrepresented if the entire cultural message was to be imparted correctly. These stories are the origins of all of our people's holiest scriptures. The cultural context of our stories may differ, yet the lessons remain much the same once we set aside our cultural idiosyncrasies and expectations. However, in order to ensure that the precise meaning and importance of these valuable lessons was not lost, each culture was required to adopt cultural defense postures whenever their cultures seemed under attack or invasion by foreign cultures. Our holiest scriptures could not have been passed down to us intact without these valuable cultural defense mechanisms. In the information age, the global environment of emerging world peace took on very different characteristics from the worlds in which our ancestors' ancestors once lived. What once were healthy characteristics of our respective cultures, our cultural autoimmune defense mechanisms, became greater and greater liabilities, particularly as it became clearer and clearer that our ancestors must soon learn to achieve world peace. Cultural defense mechanisms are reactive human operant conditioning systems buried deeply in most people's non-consciousness in conditioned subconscious and unconscious reactive behavior response algorithms. Most people are unaware of being controlled by their reactive conditioning when they respond defensively to a perceived threat to anything they value. If we were aware of our reactively conditioned responses taking charge of our actions, our awareness might cause us to hesitate. In survival terms, hesitation may mean death. The path to world peace established by our ancestors had to begin by addressing the question, how do we safely disarm our reactive cultural defense responses? Prime analysis had shown that reactive conditioning was the underlying mechanism by which all cultural domination mechanisms maintain their holds on the hearts and minds of the people and either deliberately or inadvertently cause them much suffering as a consequence. There were many culturally transmitted social entities that acquired life of their own as a consequence. Their autoimmune defense responses came to be called memetic agents. Today, we call the parent memetic entities of memetic agents memetic agencies. All states, churches, universities, corporations, hospitals, military forces, etc. are examples of very large memetic agencies. A smaller scale of memetic agencies are any schools, clinics, or workplaces where any group of people operate by an agreed set of instructions, including individual civic organizations and church congregations. A more immediate scale of memetic agency includes families, friends, peer groups, and other small or loosely knit groups of people. Memetic agents are culturally transmitted social instruction sets that define group recognition tactics, group limits such as territories or acceptable forms of social intercourse, and the expectations of members and the group regarding each other individually and collectively. Benign mimetic agents inspire acts of tenderness, compassion, mercy, and respect, including perhaps all behaviors that might be considered to be virtuous. Malign mimetic agents inspire acts of defensive or aggressive statures that harm both the host and the host's target or targets. Many mimetic agents were once extremely harmful. Car advertising mimetic agents are a good example of the many different levels of harm that were all created to sell a manufacturer's particular brand or model of automobile. There are several classes of damage that result from mimetic agents designed to sell automobiles. These classes include damage to the target audience psyche, damage to a minority population psyche, 2 counts, and damage to the environment, multiple counts and grades of severity. Please note, we must consider these charges in a second episode. Please continue with the video titled 0001, How the Earth Made Peace, Part 1, Cultural Defense Mechanisms, Episode 2. Namaste.